Hey guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video we're going to talk about my thoughts on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I want to start off by saying that I wasn't like the biggest fan of Breath of the Wild, at least to like the extent that everybody else was. Now, I'm not saying that it was a bad game or anything like that. I actually did enjoy the game. More like I didn't enjoy it as much as everybody else did. And the reason that I say this is because I kind of went into Tears of the Kingdom kind of with that same mindset where I'm like, I don't know if I'm really gonna like this game as much as I think. But before we get into the video, guys, do me a huge favor and subscribe to the channel. I do a lot of game reviews and I purchase every game that I review, so whether it's good or bad, I'm also putting my money on the line. And I just want to give you guys my genuine and honest thoughts. Also, I do want to put a spoiler warning here, as there are some things that I do want to talk about that some might deem in spoiler territory. So here's your warning. With that out of the way, let's jump right into the story. The story kicks off with Link and Zelda searching under the tunnels of Hyrule Castle. They eventually discover like this mummy looking dude with an arm on his chest, and he wakes up and literally chooses violence and proceeds to raise the entire Hyrule Castle up into the sky. Link, like the hero he is, tries to stop him and breaks his sword, which is a common theme in the game. Zelda somehow gets transported to the past. I'm pretty sure your arm gets blown off. Now you gotta find all of the sages to help rescue Zelda and stop this mummy dude. Oh, and then you wake up and you have this goat man's arm, which apparently gives you powers. And that's more or less like the very summed up version. And if I'm being 100% honest, I'm kind of like a 70-30 on the story. 70% of me liking it. There are some parts that I'm just kind of like on. Like there are moments in the story that they absolutely nail it and they are so good, but then there's just like kind of like a lot of just like meh kind of sprinkled throughout. An example of that is when you start doing the quest line where you're going and searching out the sages, or the sages power per se. I did Tulin's quest first, and I genuinely thought that the quest was good. But after completing Tulin and all of the other sages, you start to kind of see that all of the quests are more or less the same, just with a different coat of paint on them. Sidon's quest was probably the only one that I thought was unique enough or different enough, just because they had a lot more steps involved within his quest that kind of differed it from the others. But it still kind of followed a very similar format. Even like the last sage, I won't spoil it here, but there's a fifth sage. And even that, you kind of notice that it's still the same like quest format. Like go here, unlock X amount of things, or go get X amount of things, fight the boss, you get the sage's power. Like it was that, but several times. Despite all that, I actually really did enjoy the characters, with Tulin and Sidon being among my favorites. I thought all of the voice acting was actually really good when it actually happens. Why this game isn't totally voiced is just kind of mind-boggling to me. Like, you'll have some scenes that are totally voiced, and the very next scene will be text only. Which isn't bad, like, there's nothing wrong with text only, but it's just like, it's Nintendo. They could totally do the whole thing voiced if they wanted to. So it's just kind of weird that it's just like, not. With that though, I do think the story had a great beginning, a great end, and it had some truly great moments all throughout the story, but there's just like a lot of like meh sprinkled all throughout the story. There was just some things that I was just like, well, we did that, I guess. And then there are other moments that I just thought were really good. Like I said, I'm kind of 70-30 on. Like I didn't hate the story, but I didn't absolutely love it. Up next, let's talk about gameplay.
Witness the blood moon's rise.
Tears of the Kingdom introduces quite a few of new abilities, the most prominent being the Ultra Hand, which allows you to take objects and fuse them together pretty much to anything that you want. You can make vehicles, you can make like boats and things with fans, or you could be like me and make this super long sketchy bridge because you chopped down all the trees and you couldn't get across. I just think that it's really cool that they give you this ability and they're just like, figure out it on your own. Use your imagination. And I think that's really cool. I've seen lots of video clips of people doing the same quest that I was doing, but did something totally different. But it's really cool that they give you the freedom to really experiment and just do things how you want to do it. I will say that the longer that I played, the more simple I made like my crafting with the Ultra Hand. I definitely feel like at the beginning I was kind of a lot more creative, but after, you know, like 30-40 hours, I'm like, all right, let me just make it as simple as possible so I can get from point A to point B, or get whatever it is that I was doing done. As you continue to progress in the story, you get more Zonai devices. I think it's called Zonai. I could be saying that wrong. They're like the fans, the blimps, the wheels, which just add an extra layer onto that crafting there. You also get another ability called Ascend, which allows you to basically travel up through solid objects. You could be literally all the way down in the depths and travel all the way up to the top. Like, it's just kind of cool, and you're just phasing through solid objects. The other cool ability is called Rewind, if I'm remembering correctly. Basically, you pause time and you click whatever object that you're trying to find, and you rewind it back to its original location. For instance, his bridge is coming down and you're trying to get on it, you could stop it, hop on it, and then it'll take you back to the other side. The other really cool skill that I really enjoyed was the weapon fusing. Just like before, you can literally make weapons out of anything that you see. As long as you got a handle for it, you can most likely make a weapon out of it. Which is really cool because now you basically have an entire inventory that could be made into weapons. You got materials, you can make it into a weapon. Fruit, you can make it into a weapon. Like, you can literally make anything into a weapon as long as you got a handle for it, basically. My biggest issue though with the crafting, the weapon crafting, was just the durability. I just hate that so much. It was in Breath of the Wild as well, and I didn't like it there either. In fact, I actually don't like weapon durability in any game. I'm just not a big fan. I feel like I make a really cool weapon and it breaks in like 5 swings, and then I gotta make something else. And yeah, I know you could buy the weapon again, or you can remake the weapon if you got the materials, but it just seems really tedious to like make something and then just have it break in 5 swings. Same with the bow. Like, I felt like with the bow too, I'd get like 4 or 5 hits off before my bow got the little message saying like, your bow is badly damaged. And so it's just kind of, I don't know, I just think it's dumb and annoying, and I just really don't like it. Even though like I had plenty of like materials and, you know, crafting stuff that I can make endless amount of weapons, that wasn't the issue. It's just that I had a couple weapons that I liked that were, you know, really high damaging, and then they would just break really fast. Also with the weapon crafting, because you can craft literally anything to a handle, it's led to some like extremely ugly looking weapons. Like, some things like combined really good, and some things don't. Like, I noticed when I combined things with the same like type that they were, like if I had Zonai blades and I attached them to Zonai handles, they worked out great, or monster parts to regular things. But then there are some times where I'd get like a horn and I'd attach it to like a broadsword, and it literally just poked it on the top, and I'm like, seriously? Like, there's a lot of really ugly weapons. Ugliness aside though, the combat with them was actually really fun. I specifically really enjoyed the parry. Getting those off actually felt really satisfying, and then just doing a ton of damage was a lot of fun. I also really enjoyed the companions, or the sages. As you complete their quests, you get like a sage avatar of the people that are helping you fight, and that was really cool having them help in battle. I'll have Tulin, who does like a gust, which really helps more with traversal, but he does blow away smaller enemies. You have Raiju, which does lightning, and basically whatever you shoot an arrow at that is within range, she'll cast a lightning bolt down on them. You have Yonobo, which I think I'm saying that right. He basically rolls into a ball, and then whatever you fire him at, he'll explode upon impact. And then the last one, Sidon, which he was my personal favorite out of all the sages. He gives you like a water shield that protects you from, I want to say, 1 good hit. Or if you go up to enemy and you hit the attack, it'll take all that water and send it like a slash towards the enemy. I think all of which were really fun, and was really cool to kind of mix and match the sages in the battle. My only con with them though is that they kind of just like run around all on their own, and so sometimes I wanted to use like Sidon and he's running really far away, and I'm like, dude, get back here. And on top of that, they don't really help with battle, because I kind of sat back to see how much damage they would actually do to some enemies. They just really don't do that much, although they do really help with distracting enemies, especially if you have a huge group, so that not all of them are running towards you. You only have a few, and they kind of distract the other enemies, so that was also really good. Speaking of enemies, let's talk about those. There are a lot of returning enemies from Breath of the Wild, which I actually really liked. They also have some brand new enemies called the Zonai enemies. They're like these ancient robot looking things. Overall, I thought the variety here was actually really well done. I didn't feel like I was fighting the same enemies over and over again, and there was a fair decent amount of variety here. Tears of the Kingdom also brings back cooking from Breath of the Wild, which I personally did not like the cooking. Like, it was fine, I guess, at first, but I just felt like it was kind of a waste of time. Especially when you're running low on materials, you'd have to go out and, farm all these materials and then spend another, 10 or so minutes cooking all these meals. And it just the whole thing just felt really time consuming. And it sucks too because the materials that you gather, like, they just don't do anything to heal you. They do so little to actually heal you that you have to make them into meals. Otherwise, they're just kind of useless. They'll give you like 1 or 2 hearts. So, I don't know, I just felt like it was really time consuming, and I just wasn't a big fan of it. Although I will say that my 4-year-old daughter thought the cooking was the best part of the game. Tears of the Kingdom also has quite a few of really cool armor sets. Some of my favorites being the Fierce Deity set, the Barbarian set, and the Minor set. All of those 3 were probably the ones that I used quite a bit, and I thought that they were all really cool. I also really liked the Hyrule set, which is kind of the set you can get really early on in the game. I just like the simple look of it, and it's the set that he's wearing on the box art. A lot of these armor sets, once you get all of the components together, they'll do little buffs here and there. For instance, the Fierce Deity set does extra damage. There's certain sets that give you more, resistance to lightning, things like that. So all the sets do something a little bit different, and I thought they all looked really cool. Along with the vast variety of enemies, the game also has its fair share of bosses. Now, this might be a hot take here, but I think most of the bosses, or at least a large portion of the bosses in the game, are kind of underwhelming. Now, don't get me wrong, I think a lot of them looked really cool, but just most were just so painfully simple or just really easy. There were so many bosses that were just like, shoot the eyeball, or hit him in the leg to where his eyeball falls out and just smack the eyeball. Like, there's so many bosses that were very simple like that, and I just wasn't really a big fan of that. Like, I don't know what else to say. Maybe I just had this expectation and they were just kind of underwhelming to me. And I know this is Zelda and not, Dark Souls when it comes to bosses, but I don't know. I was just expecting more. Now, don't get me wrong. There are quite a few bosses that I really enjoyed. The final boss, I won't spoil that, but the final boss was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed, like, that sludge, squid, shark boss in Sidon's quest. I thought that was really cool. I also really enjoyed a lot of the, like, world bosses, like the dragons, the elemental 3-headed dragons. They were super difficult, but I enjoyed the challenge, and they were something different, and they were a little bit more than just shoot the eyeball, which so many bosses I felt like were very much like that. But one of the things I actually enjoyed was Hyrule itself. The world of Hyrule is freaking massive. Not only is there just like the ground level, but you have like the islands up in the sky, as well as these way down underground depths. And on top of that, just like I said, Hyrule itself is so big that they have several different biomes. You have deserts, you have snowy mountains, jungles, pitch black caves. Tears of the Kingdom just has a ton of variety just within its world. And I'm honestly still blown away that they were able to get this game to work on the Switch's crappy hardware. Like, this world is so big that I'm surprised that I didn't have, like, the game crash several times. We have games that are not even nearly this size that I'll be crashing on my Xbox or on my PlayStation. And it's just crazy that they got this big of a game to run on the Switch. It's honestly a miracle, really. Like, there was a time that I jumped from one of these sky islands and, flew all the way down and went through a tree stump into the depths below, and I never once had a loading screen or had the game crash. Like, it's insane. The world also just has tons of stuff to distract you or detract you from whatever it is you thought you were doing. And next thing I know, I'm like hours deep into some random other thing other than the main quest that I was doing. So many different things along the path to like, hey, come look at this. Hey, let's go over there. What was that? An example that comes to my mind is that I was trying to do the fairy quest where you have to go get the musicians to have the fairies come back so you can upgrade your armor. Well, as I was doing that, I saw something. I don't even remember what it is that I saw, but I went and did this, and then I went through a cave, and next thing I know, I was all the way down in the depths, nowhere near the fairy quest. Like, it just went from one thing to the other. Next thing I know, it just came back, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was going to upgrade my armor. You know, I was going to unlock more fairies so I can upgrade my armor, and I'm nowhere near close to where I was. And on top of that, I was just constantly discovering new things, new areas, new items, new chests in like random spots, and I absolutely loved it. I loved seeing something off in the distance and being like, I think I can go there. Or even just like looking up into the sky and seeing one of the many dragons and being like wondering, I wonder if I can land on one of those. Spoiler alert, you can. Or even just going all the way down into the depths that are like pitch black where you have to light it up yourself and just finding all of the secrets down there. All of it was just really good, and I really only have like one con, and that is the traversal. This world is just so massive that the traversal between going through all these things, I just wasn't really a big fan of. Like, they do give you a horse, and I even got a couple horses all the way up to 100%, but they're just so like clunky to control. It's like I would make the car and I would only go so far before I had to hop out and ditch it anyway because I couldn't get over this hill, or I couldn't really go around, or there was a canyon in between. So there's so many different things where I couldn't use one thing the whole time. And so that was like my only gripe, was just the traversal. Everything else about this world I thought was great. I loved the exploration. I love, just like Elden Ring, that's what it made me think of, is just constantly discovering new things. I mentioned this earlier, but I'm still blown away that they were able to get this game to run on the Switch. I don't remember having any glitches, or the game never crashed once for me, and for it to be as big as it is and to run on the crappy Switch is just it's just mind-boggling. Although with that, it does struggle with the frame rate department, which it also, Breath of the Wild did as well. But it's definitely much better here. I feel like the frames didn't drop as much as Breath of the Wild. The times that I noticed it most were especially in like high combat areas when you got lots of enemies on screen. Although there were many times where I'm just kind of traversing the world and then all of a sudden the frames would tank for no reason. And other than that, I didn't really run into any big major issues, or I would say game-breaking issues that kind of broke immersion for me. It just makes me wonder why we don't have a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro yet. Playing this game at like 60 frames and higher resolution than, what is the Switch, like 720, would be so cool. I would be so pumped for that. Why we don't have that, I don't know. I guess they're making too much money on the Switch. As I said in the beginning of the video, I just was not really a big fan of Breath of the Wild. I don't really know what it was. I don't know if it was just the mindset that I was in at the time, but I enjoyed it, but it wasn't one of those games that I was just like, yeah, let me go play this. And like I said, I can't really put a finger on what it was. And the reason I say that is because I went into Tears of the Kingdom with kind of that same mindset. A lot of people were super pumped, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to play it, but I'm not like overly hyped for it. But I am actually really happy to say that I absolutely had a blast with Tears of the Kingdom. I really loved Hyrule and exploring everything that this world has to offer, from the Sky Islands to the Dark Depths. I loved that there were just so many things that would constantly grab your attention, and constantly discovering new things. And almost every time you were rewarded from exploring, for going off the beaten path. I really enjoyed the Ultra Hand, making all these crazy crafting things, and then the weapon crafting. I actually really enjoyed that you had just basically a whole inventory of things that can be made into weapons. As long as you got a rusty sword, you can make some sort of weapon. And that is why I'm going to give Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom a 9 out of 10. Although there were things that I didn't quite like about the game, even with all of those things, like, they just seem so small compared to the grand scale of what Tears of the Kingdom is. The world is so big. There's just so much to do. that like the cooking and the weapon crafting were just, they just seem like such little things compared to just everything else this game has to offer. I'm literally over 100 hours played in this game, and there is just so much more that I have yet to do. There's so many quests that I haven't even done, so many bosses that I haven't even found. There's just so much to do that you can literally probably spend another 100 hours and still not have seen everything. Tears of the Kingdom is just freaking awesome. And after beating this game, it honestly makes me want to go back and play Breath of the Wild. Now that I'm in like a better mindset, I don't know what it was, but it just makes me want to go back and try it and give it a second try to see if maybe I like it a little bit better now that I've played Tears of the Kingdom. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. If you made it this far to the video, you guys are freaking awesome. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.